I basically was thinking of the whole show as being kind of this like physical instantiation of a memory within which the viewer would be. So all of my work is interrogating memory, or like looking at memory and looking at the sort of like slipperiness and malleability of memory. The sort of like central premise that I step off from is something like if memory is inherently flawed and malleable, but we base our identities and worldviews off of that like incredibly shaky ground, like what are the consequences that holds for us as individuals or us as like a society? And so creating my images, I always work from a collage, and I don't know how I started. I think I was drawn to collage mostly in that like it's or a traditional collage at least is like a two-dimensional field in which you can sort of like collapse all these different like times and events onto one plane, and I feel like that's maybe one of the most accurate ways to describe like the visual experience of like a postmodern individual or whatever. In the 21st century, you're just constantly like bombarded with like internet nonsense or like advertisements or stories from friends or overheard things on the bus or whatever, and then all this kind of gets like filtered and then washed out and then collapsed into something that you call like your day or your experience or that time I did this thing or whatever. And so collage, I felt for a while that is like probably the most accurate way to describe that visually. And so this piece all began as a collage, and it was weird because it's so large. I was kind of working on it as I was painting it. Generally, when I like put together a piece, I'll do the collage, and then I'll use that as like the basis for the painting. Obviously, things change when I'm bringing it into like the painting world, but that's generally how I like to work. But with this, because it was so large, I was literally making it the collage as I was painting. I would just sort of make a collage for the length of space in which I was working on at that time, and then as I was painting on that, I would be making the next length in collage. And so things that I would experience, things that I would paint, things that I would think about while I was working or while I was going to or from work or whatever, would influence the next sort of like length in the mural. So for this as well, again, because of the size, and because my studio is limited in its size, I was working basically on 14-foot lengths, and then I would roll it up, and that would be almost forgotten, and then I would work on the next 14 feet. So I think the total length is like, it's like 80 feet or 85 feet or something like that. So it was many pulls. And because I would roll it up and not be able to see it, it almost became like this game of an exquisite corpse that I was playing with myself, where I'd forget where things were. I had this sort of loose idea in how things were like lined up. I could look back at the collage, but the collage is an imperfect representation of what had been painted. So as that happened, like it really was letting it and allowing it to be like disjointed, not worrying too much, and using that as kind of like an accurate or a semi-accurate representation of what I conceive of the memory as being. So throughout the mural, actually, I started to use these two elements that are pretty apparent, cutting out and framing. And so that was really an effort to discuss like both the sort of like the erasure aspects of memory, but also too like the collapsibility of like the way you consider memory. Like I'd say actually necessarily, like because there's such an onslaught of information which we all sort of battle through at any given moment of the day, I think that that's probably like an instinctual device, something where you just kind of like parse parse through the nonsense and then only remember like the prescient details. And so from that's I guess, I mean, it's maybe a little on the nose with the framing, but I really wanted to like, as well as touch on those two aspects, I wanted to bring this work sort of into like the round and into like a sculptural element, just because of the nature of like the room and also because of the size of the piece itself. So that's why I was using the frames. The frames themselves as well, I started to use them as stencils, and it was like still just this kind of push and pull between like erasure and about like definition within the way that we think about the past, think about our memories, consider ourselves. I guess like in spite of the fact that there's just so much that we go through at any given moment.